Hi guys, this is Mr. Stewart, and this is going to be the mini lecture for Chapter 9. Guys, I want to start off by issuing you an apology because this integrity lesson is a little late coming. I happened to miss work on Monday, had an old back injury flare up, and basically was flat on my back in the bed most of the day Monday. And I'm still not doing great, but back at work anyway. So I apologize for the lateness of this, but it will be up before your first discussion postings are due, which is Thursday. So this is Wednesday morning, about 20 minutes to 8, and we're going to go ahead and get this knocked out. Now, most of you probably at this point have read Chapter 9, and Chapter 9 is pretty short, it's pretty to the point, and there's not a whole lot of expansion that I can do on it other than to just kind of give you my spin on the whole issue of policies and procedures, which is what Chapter 9 is concerned with. So the first thing is that I just cannot stress how important policies and procedures are to the overall security function. Yes, you need physical security and you need security personnel, but you also need good, strong policies and procedures for those security personnel to follow in order to provide that effective physical information and personnel security. So having proper policies and procedures in place is really critical to maintaining the overall security of the facility. You know, you can have the best people in the world, you can have all of the coolest gadgets, all of the neatest stuff in the world to help you secure your facility, but if you don't have a written policy manual or a written set of guidelines and procedures to follow, you're still going to have weak spots in your system. There's going to be holes in your security in which people can infiltrate, they can attack, and can cause you losses. So really and truly, the whole idea behind security procedures and policies is to have them documented, is to have them in a written form that people are aware they exist, they know what they are, and they are choosing to follow those policies and procedures. So policies and procedures are often referred to as SOPs, Standard Operating Procedures, or POs, Post Orders. Sometimes they're simply called SPs, Security Policies, or Security Procedures, either one. So understand that policy and procedure, it can be kind of a twofold model. The first is it can be very preventative. And what I mean by that is that it can, if you follow those procedures and then the procedures are written well and they're executed correctly, then you're going to be able to prevent losses from happening. But we also have policies and procedures that tell us how to respond in an incident. So they're going to be reactive in nature. They're going to be proactive as well as reactive in nature. So we also have response policies in case of in-progress incidents or emergencies. You know, we have those policies and procedures that we follow all the time when nothing bad is happening, and that helps us to keep things from happening, to prevent those incidents. And then we also have other policies and procedures that we follow when something does happen, so that everybody isn't kind of standing around with their hands in their pockets looking around at each other saying, which way do I go, George? Which way do I go? You have a policy manual and a procedure manual that tells you, here's what we do if this happens. Here's what we do if that happens. And honestly, I've worked for agencies in the security field. I have worked for a law enforcement agency that really did not have a good set of policies and procedures. In fact, when I took over as chief of police, there was no policy manual for the police department. That's one of the first things I did, was to write a policy manual, because how can you be expected to meet a particular standard if you don't know what the standard is? So I had to write a policy manual that set some guidelines out for the behavior of my officers, and then they all had to read it, they had to acknowledge it, and I put basically a signed form in each one of their personnel files that said that they had read and acknowledged and they agreed to follow the policy and procedure manual. And if they did violate said policy or procedure manual, then disciplinary action would ensue. Of course, the whole idea behind having policies and procedures is not to discipline those people who don't follow them. The whole idea is to have a set of guidelines in place that will keep your organization from experiencing some losses. So it's just important to understand the reasoning why we have security policies and procedures. All right. In your book, there's a quote from Titus Livius that says, "There's always more spirit in attack than in defense." I mean, it's easy for us to get behind something when we're in the middle of an incident and we must respond. But it's oftentimes harder for people to see the importance of following some sort of daily procedure or even follow a written procedure when it might not even make sense to them. Well, I think it's important for you guys to understand that these procedures not only keep your facility safe and ensure against losses and can help you respond in the middle of a crisis event, but they also help us to become aware of the security requirements of your facility. I mean, the security requirements for the Fruit of the Loom underwear factory are going to be much different than the security requirements for Boeing or Thiokol or any of the other defense contractors that handle double top secret squirrel stuff. So it's important to understand that having a good set of policies and procedures, making your employees aware of them and understanding them and acknowledging them also helps your employees become aware of the security function and the importance of the security function. So any security program is most effective when all players take ownership in the process. Doesn't matter what their job is, doesn't matter what their rank is. And I'm not just talking about security people here. I'm talking about every single employee. I mean, think about this. You could have a defense contractor who everybody takes their role in maintaining security seriously except for the janitor. And maybe the janitor says, well, I'm just a janitor. It's no big deal. But what does a janitor have access to that not every employee does? The keys to the building, right? They probably have keys to almost every aspect of the building. And that's why it's very important that even employees so far down on the food chain, like the custodian or the janitor, or even the guy that comes in that refills the soda machines and the snack machines, understands the importance of security and is aware of the security function within that particular facility. So security should be seen as a mission-critical element of the organization. And what I mean by that is that without security, your mission, whatever it is going to fail. Take the Fruit of the Loom underwear manufacturing facility that I've used throughout these Tegrity lectures. I mean, if security is breached there, it could possibly bring production to a halt. And when you stop making underwear, the company stops making money. That makes sense? So even something as simple as a halt in production is considered a loss. Let's take it to the other extreme. If you're building nuclear missile warheads at the let's say at the K-25 plant in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, what you're going to see is that everybody, including the janitor, understands the mission criticality of what the plant does, and therefore it's everyone's responsibility to maintain security. And that should be one of the main things you take from this particular chapter, is that it is everyone's responsibility to maintain security. And everyone needs to be aware of security and the security function. So all employees should be aware of the importance of a good security program. They all should have what we call buy-in to the program, which means they are considered a stakeholder in the process. If you're a stakeholder, it means, hey, you've got a vested interest. I mean, even if you're the janitor, you're still a stakeholder in the process, because if that company experiences a loss and they shut down and you don't happen to be working, very few janitors that I'm aware of are on salary, which means they're hourly employees. It means they're not going to have a job if the plant shuts down for some period of time, and they're not going to be able to meet their demands, pay their bills, or whatnot. So it's important to understand that every single employee must have buy-in, and they are considered a stakeholder in the security process. Even somebody as low on the food chain as the custodian or janitor in any particular organization. I'm not saying that custodians and janitors are not good jobs. I mean, somebody has to do it. And in a lot of cases, it's older retired people who need a supplemental income, or it's somebody just starting out, or somebody just needs some part-time, or it doesn't necessarily matter what they're making. So, there's a job out there for everyone, and there are certain people who are cut out to do those jobs the same way there are certain people cut out to be rocket scientists, which does not happen to be me. So everybody must buy in. And we oftentimes overlook some of the employees who are further down on the food chain, so to speak, than the employees who are higher up. We often think, well, it's the higher up employees are the ones that have to maintain security. The lower level employees, not necessarily. Well, those are the ones that also have to have lots of buy-in. They have to understand the criticality of the mission of the organization, and understand that they could be the single chink in the armor that could cause the whole organization to fall if they are not maintaining their awareness and their security perspective in regard to the organization. Every employee must also actively participate in the promotion of the security plan and the security program, whatever it may be, however small or however large and complex the security program may be at a particular organization or facility. Every employee must have buy-in. And typically and historically, companies haven't done a real good job of this. Many of the lower level employees often feel like that security is there just for looks, or it's there to make their day harder. Maybe they're running 5 minutes late and they need to get clocked in, and now they get their lunchbox checked. So they're really going to be late, and the boss is going to yell at them. Well, they're looking at it from the wrong way. They're looking at it from the perspective that security doesn't matter as long as I can get in and do my job. Well, maybe that employee needs to have it explained to them that you need to get here in time every day, that in case it's your number and it's your lunchbox that pops up that needs to get searched, that you can do it and you're not going to be late. Because bosses don't want to hear, well, I'm late because the security searched my lunchbox. Because then the boss calls the head of security and whines to them, why are you searching the employees' lunchboxes who are coming in a minute or two late? And security officer or security boss says, well, it was their number. That was the number that was up. There was the ones we searched. And so if you don't have 100% employee buy-in, you can see that what you get sometimes is maybe a little dissension among the ranks between employees, because they look at the security function as kind of being a thorn in their side. There's nothing wrong with something being a thorn in your side as long as it's keeping you aware. But if it's becoming a nuisance, then you're probably looking at it the wrong way. Any security program should also have a security plan. And a security plan is a written document that defines the organization's security mission. It provides an overview of the program and identifies all methods in use for asset protection. It's basically a comprehensive, working, living document that could possibly change at any time, but basically details the whole security function of the organization. It documents policies, procedures, functions, measures, and strategies for providing a safe and secure environment and preventing crime and any other incidents. And it also includes known threats as well as postulated threats. And what a postulated threat is those threats that those things that have not made themselves clear, but we think could possibly be a threat to our organization, could possibly cause us some loss. So it's important that as part of that security program, you have developed a comprehensive security plan for that organization. Now, when I say comprehensive, I mean depending upon the company, it may be 2 to 3 pages, or it could be several hundred or even several thousand pages. I mean, if you go look at one of the security plans for a school like Calhoun, or a security plan for one of the defense contractors like Boeing or Morton Thiokol or General Dynamics or something like that that has a vested interest in national security, you're going to see their security plans are much more comprehensive. They're much more complex, and there's probably much more buy-in than with the smaller businesses or smaller facilities as well. And finally, you also need to develop something called an emergency management plan. Now, understand that the security plan, what we just talked about, is in a proactive mode. If you follow it and you go by it, then you're going to prevent a lot of things from happening. But organizations should also have an emergency management plan, sometimes just called an emergency plan. And it's similar to the security plan, but it's focused on what to do in case of an emergency, in case of an in-progress incident, something that's happening right now. How do we respond? It's not executed daily. It's not followed daily like the security plan is. It's only followed when it's activated when you need some sort of response to some sort of incident. So it's used when an emergency exists so that it can be controlled and mitigated. And mitigated is simply a fancy word meaning lessened. You know, when an incident happens, we know we're going to experience some loss. But depending upon how strong our security policy and procedure is and what's in our emergency management plan, we can mitigate that loss to the least degree possible, which means, yes, we're still going to experience some loss, but it's going to be a much lesser loss than it would have been if we had not had these policies and plans in place. So emergency management plans are reactive because you don't use them until you are reacting to an incident, whereas security plans are proactive. You use them every day in order to try to prevent an incident from happening. All right. And in a nutshell, that is Chapter 9. It's simply asking you to look at the importance of a written plan, both from a reactive perspective, what to do in case of an emergency. You know, if you think about the little fire extinguisher cases you used to see that had glass in them with a little metal rod hanging off the side, says break glass in case of emergency and get the fire extinguisher. That is a reactive plan. That thing is not doing anything to prevent anything from happening. It's there in case you need it. But when you do need it, you know what to do with it. Whereas the security plan is proactive. It's those things that help you run your operation in a secure manner day to day. And these are the plans and procedures and policies that every employee should be aware of in order to help maintain security and prevent incidents from happening. So I cannot stress again the importance of developing good written plans to help you run the security function day to day, as well as what to do in case of an emergency. All right, guys, have a good week, and I'll see you next week in the mini lecture, and good night.